Good morning. I am recording this video as a primer for our ACPE site visit this November. And what I'm going to do is go over the 30 standards very quickly that ACPE looks at. ACPE comes in every so often to do site visits, and they look at 30 standards. These 30 standards, for which we'll prepare a self-study, are divided into 6 sections, and then there are a few appendices that I'll talk about as well. And they flow very logically. So the first section, the self-study, when ACP comes in, is they ask us, so tell us about your strategic plan, your mission, and how you evaluate the strategic plan. So that's the first 3 standards. They talk about, what are your mission and goals? How do you plan to achieve these missions, this mission and goal, and your goals? And what is your strategic plan look like? So what are your strategic initiatives? And the final standard in that section is how do you evaluate if you are reaching your goals and you're reaching your mission? So that's the first section. So after we tell them about our strategic plan and our mission, they ask us, so how are you organized within the school and within your university? They ask about institutional accreditation. Is your university accredited? They ask about the college or school relationship with the university. So how does the dean interact with the administration? How do the faculty interact with other faculty in terms of faculty senate and so on? They also ask about other relationships that the university or the school has with other entities. So with entities outside the university, for example, for research purposes, for teaching purposes, interprofessional education purposes. In this particular section, second section, which looks at the university, organization, administration, they don't really talk about experiential affiliations. That's in a later section. But they talk about other relationships. They ask us to talk then about the school organization and governance. How is the school organized? What kind of governance system do you have? Do you have faculty meetings? Do you have bylaws? And so on. And the final standard in this section is what are the qualifications and responsibilities of the dean? So they've asked us to tell us about the strategic plan, the mission, how are we organized? And then they say, what is your curriculum like? So how do you deliver the curriculum to the PharmD students? So what is the goal of your curriculum? What are the outcomes of the curriculum? How is the curriculum developed? How do you deliver the curriculum? And what does your curriculum committee look at in terms of improvement of the curriculum? They ask in this section on curriculum about teaching and learning methods. How do you teach? How do students learn? They ask us to tell them about competencies. What are the competencies and what are the outcomes that students are asked to achieve? And then there are 2 standards, standard 13 and 14, that talk about what are the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values that the students get through the curriculum, but principally through the didactic curriculum. And standard 14 asks about the experientials, the experiences. So what do they get through the experiences? How is it set up? And so on. And then finally, they ask, how do you assess your curriculum? And that is, of course, our assessment committee does a lot of assessment. So that's the third set of standards, a third section. So there's a strategic plan, the organization, curriculum, and then they say, so tell us about your students in the 4th section. How is student services organized? How do you admit students? What are your criteria? If you admit advanced standing students, not in your first year, but in later year, what do you do? How do you do that? How do students progress? So what are the progression standards? What has been a history in terms of progression? They also have a standard in this section about student complaints. Is there a way the students can complain? They ask about program information. How do you communicate, either through the website or leaflets or pamphlets? How do you communicate program information? And they ask about student representation and perspectives. This will particularly be, in our case, the Student Representative Council. So how do you communicate with your students? How do students interact in student organizations? And finally, there's a standard 23 in the student section that asks about professional behavior and harmonious relationships among students. So now we've told them about students, and then they say, so tell us about your faculty and staff. These are 3 standards, 24 through 26. Tell us about how many faculty you have in each department. Tell us about the trends, how many faculty you've lost and hired. They ask about qualitative factors. So what are the what are the qualifications of the faculty? And they ask about how you evaluate your faculty. So how do you evaluate what kinds of faculty development you have? Do you have faculty development? And do you do performance or annual reviews? So that's the 5th section. And the final section is, so now, since you've told us about all these things, tell us about your facilities and resources. So there's a standard that addresses physical facilities. Then the practice facilities, which are principally the APPEs and the IPPEs. So tell us about those practice facilities, and a little bit about the practice sites as well. Tell us about your library, the other educational resources you have, and finally, the final standard 30 is about financial resources. I talked a little bit about the appendices. There's 4 appendices. Appendix A is really the Joint Commission of Pharmacy Practitioners' Future Vision of Pharmacy. We don't have to address that. But Standard B talks about a guidance for basic science curriculum. And Standard C and D is what they really look at. We have to do some mapping. Standard C talks about pharmacy practice experiences, principally the APPEs. So are you covering APPEs? And Appendix D talks about pre-APPE. So what are you doing in your curriculum? And it's sort of, you got a map against these guidelines. What are the domains and abilities you do before they enter APPEs? So that includes IPPEs as well as the didactic curriculum. So that's a quick run through of the standards. I hope this is helpful for our site visit in November. Thank you.